insights on user design and web experience, and so I'll turn it over to them.
This is quite official. Get a microphone and everything. My name is Angus. I'm actually a real full-blown manager now. I've graduated from project management, but it feels really good because I didn't like working with those guys. I'm kidding, just because they're here. I'm Angus. I'm the design user experience manager up here on the hill. I've had 7 unique visitors to my cubicle today. That was a joke because we were talking about unique visitors earlier. Jared, you're the only one that got it. Sorry. Okay. But I did want to go over a little bit of why design, why we're here talking about this, and some of the things that we've championed. About 6 months ago, we made a little bit of transition. I work in the solutions delivery group. They have a small group of designers, and we went ahead and created our own group that just does quote-unquote design work. I don't really like calling it design. That reminds me of like a HGTV show where we're painting wallpaper or painting all certain colors. I like calling it more, tailoring the user experience or dealing with the user experience. We want to focus on usability and a few other things. We created the group about 6 months ago. We didn't have much work to do. And then the DTS website came along, heritage.utah.gov came along. The employee gateway came along, dhrn.utah.gov came along. Insurance, we've done their website, we've done, Joseph will name some others that we've done probably. And right now we've got a very mixed bag of applications that we do design on. A majority of the work that we've been doing over the last, early on when we started, was customizing WordPress. Now I know that sounds not very exciting, but a lot of people have maybe used Contribute or Joomla or different things. We've kind of centered around WordPress. We've got UMD plugins to it. We've worked on security with the hosting team here to get some of that taken care of. And then we've gone ahead and we focus on 3 things with the business. First is usability. It has to be usable. That is on our side. If it's not usable, we've got some problems to fix. And sometimes even after you've released a project, it may not be as usable. So we like to stay pretty iterative with our design to make sure we've got some type of agreement with them to continue working on the design of the product. But what we use is we use some analytics and different things to get there. Additionally, the next thing we focus is on accessibility. Obviously, accessibility is a really big deal. We've built that into some of our templates. On the WordPress side, it's been pretty easy. And most of it is training to make sure certain tags are there, all text and different things like that. Last thing is mobility. We focus a lot on trying to make sure everything we're working on stays mobile, or that they're willing to purchase that. For a lot of the public-facing websites, take DTS or some of the others, it was nice to have mobile accessibility. Now, for every project, that's not true. If people aren't going to ever access it on your phone, or it needed its own app, we're not going to build a responsive interface. And these guys will go over more of that, or at least Joseph probably will, or not. I don't know. The one thing that I want to get away from is thinking that our group does pretty pictures. We hand the pretty pictures off to the developers. And the developers take our pretty pictures and mangle them into something that's called an application. Yes, Gene, I'm looking at you. No, I'm kidding. But what we have is we can take these things. We like to be integrated with the development team. And what we've found is this works very well. Joseph here, he's extremely talented. He actually goes in, does some of the graphics, works through the HTML, implements it into the IDE, tying it out to the Java tags, making sure it's mobile, accessible, and usable, and he gets to be a designer through the entire project. We tried to get rid of the over-the-wall type of relationship we've had with our developers. Meaning we take our design, chuck it over the wall, and they go implement it. It doesn't work in every case, but where it can, we've really seen incredible productivity increases, time to delivery increases, and different things like that. My last point is since these guys aren't just artists, and even though they may have an artistic eye or an artistic background, these guys, design is a job. We need to get in there, we need to do our job, we need to work with you on these things. We are available for some work, not right now, we're all booked, but you know, if there are different things coming along, you can always talk with me. I'm Angus at Utah.gov. I actually go by the name Angus, sadly. It's kind of stuck with me. I rarely answer to John. But the last thing I want to say before I sit down is that it's still my belief, and I think we've proved this out over the last few weeks, we can solve more problems through design changes, usability changes, accessibility changes, different things like that on our side, in the design side, than can be done in the developer side. That may feel blasphemous in here, especially if you're a developer. Yeah, Austin, I'm looking at you. But it may feel a little blasphemous that you're saying, okay, you can solve things better than I can. No, what I'm saying is that sometimes it's easier to go through the design, make sure, work with the customer on it, on the problem that's there, solve it through the design if possible. If you can't, then look to development. What we found is that when you're able to get that through, it seems like it's a lot easier and a seamless transition, and it's a lot less costly if it's a design change. Anyway, those are my 2 cents. Since this is a Sherry Feely type of thing, who's up next? You're up next. Anyway, I hope we are including design. This isn't anything, I think, new. Design has been there for a very long time, especially web design. There's always new things in our world. But I hope you look to find design to solve problems before you jump to a lot of other things. If you ever need help, give me a call. If I answer, I'll answer every time. Sadly, my cell phone is the only phone number you get. But I think my 5 minutes is up. Now I need to give it to you guys. Okay. I assume Dave will take questions after.
Paging Dave.
Questions after, yes.
Questions after.
Okay, we've got the Dave page, and we'll answer questions after, and we'll come up and do our little thing from here.
Nope, you bet.
Wow, they're dropping like flies.
This isn't what they thought it was. The purchasing staff has left the building. I think we'll be okay.
Okay, Dave Ostrom, and have the title of web manager. But I'll give you some background real quick on Kevin and I started working as a web manager for 4 years ago. I was the assistant deputy with the department, and I have no IT background whatsoever. But 4 years ago, we had an administrative change, and I was told, don't worry about it, Dave, we're going to take care of you. We'll find something for you. And then they came to me and said, how would you like to be our web manager? You know my background, and they said, we need someone who understands our business, someone who knows our business, and can help the IT side of our department understand what we need on the web. I said, sure, give it a go. So 4 years later, here I am. But I started working with Kevin Olsen. Kevin Olsen is the real expert. It is the real expert between the 2 of us. Technically, I spend most of my time in Kevin's cubicle asking him questions. How does this work? How does that work? But the one thing that Kevin has emphasized with me for 4 years is usability. And he's pushed this idea in every meeting that I've been in with him, this idea that we need to be listening and to our end user. And I learned that real fast because what I hear mostly is what's not working on the web, what's not working for AWS and our customers. And it seems that we're constantly responding to this. And as John or Angus mentioned, what we're always trying to do is get ahead of the development, and talk about what that user experience looks like today what kind of changes we're intending to make, and what we can do to make that user experience better. And so what it looks like right now at DWS, I mean, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we have a heavy online presence. We've moved a lot of our services online. Customers of our department filed claims for unemployment insurance, which you can imagine was quite busy over the last 4 years. We were seeing about 15,000 weekly claims every Sunday. It's probably down to about 9,000, 10,000 right now. But we see, as Dave mentioned, we get a lot of traffic to our website, filing unemployment claims. Quarterly, fourth of all employers in the state must file a weekly unemployment insurance report with DWS. We also handle all food stamp, Medicaid, financial assistance applications online. We get a lot of traffic as well as the job matching. And so it's real important to us that our online is working. And like John mentioned, we also have a very heavy emphasis on mobile now, and making sure that our applications, any development that we do, is also done mobile friendly. So what does it look like for me the last 4 years in addressing usability? It's kind of like this. I call it the DWS challenge. And the challenge is, where is the user in this process? And that's been the challenge for us. It starts with, we get a change request or a request for new development. And that request generally goes straight to the business. And our business analysts sit down and they say, okay, what is it we need to do here? And they develop a set of business requirements. They create this set of business requirements to say it needs to do A, B, and C. And this is what this change, the parameters of this change. And they hand that over to our developers. And we have developers assigned to each one of our online systems. So whether it's the unemployment insurance claim system, which is CUBS, or it's the employer filing caps, or it's the financial food stamp application where people self-manage. In my case, we have developers assigned to each one of those systems. And we have analysts. And those analysts will say, here are the requirements, developers, go and develop for us. And bring it back to us under budget and under time. And we needed it yesterday. So as fast as you can get us this, the better. And so the developers take it, they do a great job. They bring it back to the analysts and say, what do you think? And the analysts say, yeah, it looks good to us, let's go. And there may or may not be system testing. There's generally some testing that takes place, but we have a confidence level at that point that we say, it's looking pretty good to us, it's working like it should, and so let's go with it. Some of our applications or systems have assigned testers, and they're very meticulous about systems testing and making sure that it mechanically does exactly what it's supposed to do. And then we deploy. That's when our users get their first look. And so missing from this process is what Kevin has emphasized with me, our user, our end user. And so what we've done is, and go to the next slide, please, is try to inject into this system the end user. And whereas most of our systems are existing, we've tried to do some ongoing testing with those systems. And so, hard to see here, but we try and start with user testing. We've played a lot of catch up with these systems because they haven't had a lot of end user testing in a lot of years. So we start with user testing, and then we get this new system requirement, and we suggest to our business owners, we need to sit down and have a meeting and talk about what it is these changes are intended to do. Kevin's going to talk more about this later. We call it task analysis. And then, with those business requirements and with our developers, we try and we sit down and we talk about what are some good design principles. In implementing those business requirements, what are some things we should be paying attention to? And then, lastly, following development, we do more user testing. And we're going to share with you an example of what that looks like for us. Next slide. A quick example, the weekly claim filing. Typically, we have about 50 to 60% of those individuals who are receiving unemployment insurance filing their weekly claim. They have to renew their claim every single Sunday. And so we had about 50 to 60% of our weekly claim filing done online. which meant about 6,000 individuals. And the business made the decision, here's the change, we're going to move 100% of our weekly claims online. We're not going to give an option to call in or complete paperwork. We're going to move it all 100% online. We believe in our system, we believe it's working like it should, we believe everyone on we work filing their claims online. And so they came to us and they said, can you help us do this? Can you help us ensure that the remaining 40% are successful? And so we said yes. And we sat down with them, we did some task analysis, and then we went out and we did some testing. And Kevin's going to show you real quick. We used some software called Camtasia. Anyone familiar with or used Camtasia? We used Camtasia. We're going to share with you an experience. I hope this isn't uncomfortable for Dave Fletcher. Because we also, as John mentioned, we also use UMD, and we have been using UTI as an authentication method for our customers signing into for filing weekly claims. So here's an example of a user. Here in the bottom right, you'll see the visual of the user. And this individual we've asked to show us how they file their weekly claim.
And to set this up too, you may not be able to hear everything he's doing, but just observe him in the bottom right corner as he's doing the task we've asked him to do. Yeah, we could bring the mic down.
So we've asked him to file his weekly claim, and Kevin's giving him instruction right now, telling him we're not going to prompt him. We'd like him to go through the process just as he would, and but that we won't leave him hanging. We won't leave him if he gets stuck and we see sweat dripping off his forehead. We will give him some help, but we want to see what that experience looks like for him. So now this first screen here is the authentication screen where he would sign in. And he shows him to sign in with UTI ID. Can't see what's happened here. He's forgotten his password. He's now attempting recovery. It's asking him for his UTI ID and his last name. He's entered that. Now he's being prompted for his favorite singer and his favorite pastor. His recovery questions.
Doesn't look like a Kesha fan to me. Oh, it's not Kesha.
It's Michael Fronte, whoever that is.
I would have expected Michael to be it.
So we asked him here, do you recall creating these questions? He's like, no, it's been a while since I set up my account. So he tries again. You know, but in terms of user experience, this was a bit unintended, but he's probably scratching his head going, well, which one of the two did I miss? We give him no indication. We just say, oh, you're wrong. Guess again.
Does it start to feel a little uncomfortable for you watching him?
Imagine the user just sitting at home with his computer, and you can imagine he was being kind in terms of not maybe spewing forth a few adjectives to describe his frustration with the situation, but
When we test, we often take people with us. We like to take developers with us. We like to take our business analysts with us when we're out testing. And we have to give everyone instruction beforehand. Please don't jump in and help the user. We need to understand exactly what they would do, where they would fail, but also how they would recover. And it's very difficult for individuals not to want to jump in at some point and say, oh, well, have you tried this or do this? If it's not intuitive, then it's not a good user experience.
And we very much try to enforce the rule of everybody just stay quiet and observe. And that's hard, but it gives us the closest sense to what a customer is, really experiencing. And it's fun to watch their expressions. I mean, at one point he's just like, oh my goodness, not ready to throw his hands in.
So if you couldn't see what happened there, we won't go backwards, but what happened is he asked for help, and it took him to another screen, and on the ask for help screen, it asked him for his email and last name again, and he entered his email and last name like he did previous, entered his email and last name, and it brought him back here. Back to his security questions. Yeah, it gets kind of uncomfortable, but we can stop there.
Okay.
So, an unanticipated result of our testing was that we were there thinking that we were there to test the weekly filing application. We spent 20 minutes with this customer helping them recover their password and realized, we have front-end issues as well with our authentication. And we've been working with DTS and Dave and others, and there's some changes that are anticipated because of this kind of testing to UTI-ID that will make it more user-friendly for our external customers. UTI-ID was originally built, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong here, but originally built for employees or internal staff. And we're trying to adapt it and make it work for us with our external customers. And so there's some modifications that we need to make there. Next. Shows how we're catching up with some test analysis.
Okay. As Dave Fletcher mentioned, I've been involved in property as many years as any on different iterations of the Product Management Council, and was brought on in with DWS a number of years ago to be our business side designer. But one of the things I registered on the Continuum on is without good usability and without good user design, we're just a frustration. And we're a frustration, let's be honest, in a lot of cases, especially with our department, with some of the things we do. We're a hindrance. They have to come to us. And so sometimes we take that approach. Well, they have to do it, so just move their way through it, and eventually they'll get it done. But what that example showed and what we want to try and do is alleviate those choke points where customers can have problems. We've tried to do usability over the years with our different applications with varying degrees of success. I put a lot of that on the shoulders of the business side because they ask us to do certain things in time, under budget, or a lot of times under time, under budget. And so the thought or the allowance of time to be able to do successful user testing, usability testing, and really understand from a customer's perspective what it is they're trying to do falls by the wayside or an afterthought. Or once the management group gets back together, it's all designed, and they kind of scratch their head and they say, so, in fact, just as recently as a few weeks ago, Dave was in a meeting where that was the case, where our deputy director asked, has this been in front of users? And I don't think we do it on purpose. I don't think we intend to build an application or a site or anything leaving the user out, but we make a lot of assumptions. We say, oh, we're just like the user. Or I use sites too, so obviously I'm no different than any other user. But what I think we fail to understand is that in that task analysis piece, it totally comes down to, as the definition describes, a step-by-step analysis of users' tasks from their perspective. We build an app and we start from what we consider point A and we get to point Z, but that may be very different than what the customer himself is doing because he only really needs to get, A to C and could care less about D through Z. And so it's important in the task analysis to look at the user. We have personas. We make profiles of what we think the user is. We have experts. We work with our workforce information group that applies all the statistical data and analysis on economic information. Oh, we know our customers. How many of you experience that with the business side when you talk to them about developing something? Oh, we know who our customer is. So what task analysis would try and inject into the process is that it's solution agnostic. You don't think about, well, we have this technology or this service. An example I came across on some of the research I've been doing was Pro Flowers. Pro Flowers is one of the best online flower services out there. And for a long, long time, they didn't have a shopping cart. And what they did is they looked at task analysis without any technologies and focused, okay, we're going to a guy that needs to buy flowers for what? And sat down with different people in the store, in the brick and mortar, and observed a task analysis of what does he do when he comes to get flowers. Previous to that, they had been doing their website in such a manner that they were going through every flower, they were, calling by name, and they quickly realized, look, I'm a guy, I do flowers for, you name the occasion. Could be in trouble, could be anniversary, whatever. But the light went on really quick that, users don't use it how we intend it to be used at all. Another example, one of the sites that sells outdoor equipment, they have a huge jump in sales, and they couldn't figure out why in their shoes. And what it came down to was the designer, the photographer, took pictures of the bottom of the shoes. And they actually showed that in the sales design. When people would click on a pair of shoes, they'd see the bottom of the shoe. They far outsold their competition just for that simple user. And it wasn't even intentional. The photographer knew, hey, if I'm going to buy a pair of shoes, I'm going to look at the bottom of them. I want to see if they're going to be meant for whatever terrain I'm going to be in. So I kind of outlined 4 or 5 things that are important in the design process. And that is first, define the problem. And that, again, goes back to not our problem, but the user's problem. What is it they're trying to do? And you can't accurately solve a problem until you know just as accurately how to define it. And the typical mistake most product teams make is to ardently believe that they already know the user's problem. And the second part is to start with the user research. You can't effectively conduct task analysis without actually watching the user. And that little example just showed, we learn so much every time we go out and observe the user. And it's fascinating to watch them try and use our product. And they bring all this knowledge from every other site they've gone to on the web. And they have a predefined notion of how yours should work before they even get to it. And so when it doesn't, user experience goes way down. And you only need to observe a few people before you get a pretty good understanding of what the task is. You look for triggers, you look for base knowledge, you look for required knowledge. What are the pieces of information they're going to need in order to complete their task? Do they need tax IDs? Do they need insurance cards? And then the art is to try and figure out what do we have already or at our disposal that we can help them conduct that experience as quickly as possible by either examples. If I see an example of something, I'm a lot more readily able to recollect what I need to put in there. So it can be something just as subtle as that. Then we look to diagram the task flow, optimize the task, and the trick to optimizing the user's task is to start the process with the desired outcome and then work backwards up the design flow, or the task flow, excuse me. And then knowledge design. The last one talks about determine where the task requires information or knowledge that the users are not likely to have but need. This is an opportunity to embed your knowledge of the task to aid the user. And then the next slide. This is just kind of to help us think in terms of different design approaches. And we've probably all done them. And somewhere along the way, it's kind of a continuum from good to better to best. With the first one, the unintended design. This happens when a team focuses on an act of development or deployment without any consideration of what will happen when people try to use it. We get asked to build something. We even reach out to the business owner and say, what do you need? Oh, I don't know, just go build it and then come and show us. You ever heard that before? Happens all the time. So they're putting a heavy burden on the developers to understand things that they don't have time. They don't have the resources, or it's not often you get to get up from your cubicle and I want to do some usability testing before I start writing this. The next is self-design. And this happens as a result of the team that designs purely for themselves. And this works in a lot of cases. You're designing for a finite group. You understand the process, they understand the process, you understand the vernacular, they understand the vernacular. So you build it and it works. That's getting better. Genius design. And I think this is where a lot of us, we put on we're the customer hat, and we don't look beyond our own experience to inform our decisions. We say, oh, we did this one in the past and this worked. Or, I've seen this on this other side and this worked, and so we try and incorporate it that way. We're getting a little better, but we could probably still do a little better in terms of making it user-centric, and that's where we look at activity-focused design. And on this approach, teams will plan and execute research looking at the user's activities, and then try and build backwards that task analysis. But probably the one that we would prefer, that we strive to get better at, and that's the user-focused design. And these are teams who conduct the most user research, looking beyond just activities. These teams look in depth at the goals, needs, and context of the user. Are they using mobile? Are they in a library? Using that information to drive decisions into depths the team can't reach otherwise. And I guess the parting thing that I would just like to finish up with is, I've been proselyting usability for years, as Dave well knows, but even more so, it's getting outside of our own thought processes and interacting with the user, that person that's going to use your application at the end of the road. Because I agree with what was mentioned earlier by John, huge amounts of money go into our having to assist customers once the app's developed that could have easily been taken care of in design and user experience testing.
I'm Joseph Sharp. I'm the lead designer for DTS's User Experience Design Group. And I thought I'd put together some basic design ideas that drive everything that I do when I do design. And I can't impart all of my design skills to you in the 15 minutes I have, but these are some of the things I think if you do these things, you're going to be further ahead than when you started. The first thing I'd like to talk about is simplify. You've all heard the Occam's razor, less is more. And I think that's a true analogy. I love Sir Johnny Ive. He's, I think, one of the great designers of our time. He said, "There is a profound and enduring beauty in simplicity, in clarity, in efficiency. True simplicity is derived from so much more than the absence of clutter and ornamentation. It's about bringing order to complexity." Basically what he's saying is, simple design is enduring. It's not going to be, this is what people are going to be using from now until forever. It's good design is going to be simple. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later when we did the DTS website. We had to simplify it quite a bit. One other thing that I've noticed in design when we do applications or whatever, sometimes we cram so much onto the page that the user has a hard time navigating. So let the user interface breathe, spread things out. Lining things up is the next thing. Also, Hans will tell me whenever I bring a design to him, if I'm off by just a few pixels, he's going to tell me because we work together and I would harp on him about those types of things, and then he comes back and tells me. So if you line it up, your design is going to be more user-friendly. Things will mesh better for the user. Does it matter if it's off by 3 pixels? It does, actually, because your whole design is built about those little things. And then I think the biggest thing is be consistent. Even if you're consistently mediocre, I think it's better to be consistently mediocre than it is to be all over the place and inconsistent. And it would be better to be consistently great. So make sure that your user interface is consistently putting your action buttons in the same spot. Don't switch slides on the user. Alright? Get confused. Make sure your icons are all the same size. Make sure your styles are all consistent. Alright, so let's talk about an example. Let's go to the next slide. So DTS, their website, before Bob came to us and said, we need a new DTS website that's responsive. So what's the problem here? This is the Get Help page. I don't know what to click on. It's all over the place. It's very busy. It's very complex. So that was our problem. We wanted to make the website more user-friendly. But who is our user? And that's where we first started there. What we did is we sat down with Terry Davis and me and others in the design group, and we said, now this is genius design stuff. What do our users want to do? What are they coming to our website for? And we got sticky notes, and we inventoried the whole website. We took sticky notes, and we did every single topic and every single little page that we could think of on the website, and we put them all on one board, and we said, okay, how can we categorize this? How can we simplify this? And if you can go to the next slide, we came up with 4 basic categories. What are users coming to our website for? They need help. The computer's not working, the network is down, the application is crashed, they need help. So that's the first one. That's the one that we thought was the most important. People are coming to our website to get help. And then we want to get them to where they want to go fast. They have 3 choices basically. They can click on the online support, they can go to phone support, or they can connect to the live chat. So from where we were to where we are now, much simpler, much easier to get there. And we did this throughout the whole website. What's the next thing that people want to come to our website for? They want to order something. They want to order a phone, they want to order a network, they want to order a new server. And so that's the second one. Get product and service. And then they want to see their bill. And then we grouped everything else a little bit more. But I think that this, in your design, users sometimes complain that you've changed something on them. But then we had that for the first 24 hours. But then this started working. People could get what they wanted to quickly and easily. So let's go to the next slide. So just Google had a little, well, it's Fast Code Design had a little article on how Google is doing some of their user interface design. They have war rooms where they get together and they use sticky notes, just like we did with DTS. And they pointed out that your spatial memory is greater than your short-term memory. If we were to take this DTS website and we made a list and we were like, okay, how how are we going to organize this? We probably failed because we couldn't have quantified all of that. But when we put it all on sticky notes, we put it all up on the board, and then we started moving things around, it was much easier. So that's one thing that if we have sticky notes or whiteboards, that's a great way to. I didn't even do a design until we had decided what the organization was of the site. And then physical ideas are easier to manipulate. And the same thing with sticky notes. If you, it's much easier to move those around than it is to think about those things in your head. So those things are really cool. I don't think down there a lot. We do the same thing now with all of our projects. We think about what the user's doing with the DHR website. We did a usability test, and that was eye-opening to me. I thought I had nailed it. Nope. There were things that people were struggling with, and we corrected those things. And yeah, so when you have a usability test with users actually using your things, you're going to get a lot better results. That's all I got.
Questions?
Question from the group for usability, these guys.
So you say simpler is better, but sometimes we want to display information that people doesn't know, and by displaying those information, people knows how to do this. For example, maybe I want to find something on the HR website about some policy. It used to be like something listed, a group of things that I didn't know that if I find one item, it lists a group of them, so I know that. By making it simplified it, I need to go to the search. Maybe I didn't find a group of things that I used to know. So how to compromise between the simplicity and also provide information that people need? That's my question.
Yeah, we can go to that. One of the discussions, especially on the DHRM, let's say gateway website, was one of the biggest problems they had is the search didn't work and the site had everything on the front page. Well, some people like that because they knew exactly where to go because they've been trained for 2 years to go and click on certain things. So we do understand that. But when they came to us, they said, we need 2 things. We need a search that works. And so they did. They bought a Google appliance. I mean, they just went straight to the source and got a really good search, and they'll customize that over time and make sure the results come back. On the other side, one of the difficult things we had was the same thing that Joseph talked about, was categorizing, and then we had to knowingly bury stuff off the front page. That can be difficult. You're absolutely right. If you're used to going to something and you've seen it in that group before or different things like that, that's a little bit of the difficulty. We also have seen a lot of this with reports. Once in a while, we're asked to design a report, and they'll bring us a report, and everything will be on that report. And you're looking for a specific piece of data, and how do you either make that specific piece of data shine and make sure people see it, or are you the intended audience for that certain report, or do you need another report focused more on that type of stuff? This is where we get into almost the art aspect of it. I mean, we can look at analytics and all those different things, but it is difficult to say, to decide. Somebody has to make that decision, and I think that's the difficult decision to make, of what is important here and what do we highlight. So you may be looking for something that isn't highlighted, but they may be using any number of things to say, yeah, we're not going to highlight this piece. Hopefully they'll use the search, or hopefully they'll dig through a menu. But I do understand your concern. You know, if you do have everything available, sometimes it's nice to have that, even though it may not be a simplicity factor per se. I mean, that is the one thing that we do have to sacrifice once in a while is usability over other things, and that's where that gets a little bit difficult. I don't know if I've answered your question. If I would come close to it, go ahead, go a little bit further.
From what you said, we've had the same challenges at Workforce Services. One of the first things that we did when I became my manager is redesign of our website. We sat down and we spent extensive time looking at our content and asking ourselves these questions and trying to find that balance. What belongs on the homepage? And what was interesting is after we went through this redesign, we knew what was going to happen day 2. And that was, everybody's mad. Everyone's going to be mad. And we're going to immediately start getting requests for changes. And we did. And almost, I would say, if not every day, every other day, I get a request from someone who says, this is important enough that it needs to be on our homepage. Can you move this? Can you elevate this piece of content for us? And it's important to that individual. But then Kevin's here to always remind me, Dave, what about the end user? Is that what's important to the end user? Because here we are as a business saying, yeah, that's important to us, but is it important to our end user enough so that we would add complexity to our homepage or any of our other pages? Or, can we put it here and can we test it for a while and see, can people find it? Is it important to them? And so we're constantly trying to find that balance, and we do try and use analytics to see where are people going. And what we did find is that in driving towards simplicity, what we also had done in the past is we had created thousands of web pages, and customers had to drill from one page to another. And we tried to simplify that as well, and we set kind of as a goal for ourselves that primary content won't be more than 2 clicks away. And that's not to say and that says that not all of our content is going to make it to the home page. Some of it's going to be a page down or 2 pages down, and we have to acknowledge that. And it creates some challenges for some users, because for every user, the content that they're looking for is the most important content.
Also, since there's a little bit of budget there, it is something very important. We can send feedback item to the gateway, and maybe it will bubble up as something that maybe needs to be there. The main thing on that gateway was funny. The main thing we found that people use, we launched it, and it actually really attacks the server the first payday Friday, when you had to enter your time, because people would go to the gateway and use the button that says, submit my time sheet, and that would take them into the finance system to submit their time sheet. I mean, we were kind of surprised. The gateway wasn't used. It was used quite a bit, but we really saw a spike in users going just there to click one button to go through to another site. It was really interesting to see that.
One thing we've had in EHS is sometimes it can be a challenge to determine who the actual users are. We've got some of the divisions of EHS feel that this is what a typical user profile is. And there's been some discussions as to whether or not that's correct or not. Is there a good way to determine who the typical user is? For example, we have one site that's content specific, and there's a raging debate as to whether we make it very detailed and full of information for pharmacists and doctors and clinicians, or whether we say this is an informational page for the average user, and we tailor that and the information there so that anyone who's in elementary school through high school can use that easily.
Have you met with an actual user? I understand using personas. We have to, right? We have to kind of, this is our target market, this is our demographic. I mean, they made that decision with the gateways. They said, hey, let's use a search, since people were complaining about search. That is a different technology than like what I grew up with. I kind of had to find my way to find things, and some people use search. But that's going to be my first question back is, here's who we think our typical user is. Can you bring in 5 people and give pizza? I don't know.
Well, each campaign can say, here's people we bring in. The question is, we have two distinctly different views. Is there any guidance that you have of saying who actually visits this page, how do they use it? You put something on the page that says, if you're interested in earning pizza, please.
Yeah, that's what we do. No, we don't. We can't. We're the state.
I think, along the same lines, I think we identify a persona, we think we know who that user is. A good example for us is our workforce research and analysis group. They're the ones who publish all of the labor market information for our department, and they're the ones that come up with our unemployment rate each month. And they have a lot of data. And when we talk with them and ask them, who is your customer? Who is your audience? Who are you trying to reach with this? They've told us historically, educators and legislators and economists, professionals, and they'll give us this broad range of customers who they believe are their customers. But have they ever gone out and talked with those groups? No. We push information out from those pages. We think those are the people who are going there and they're using our information, but we haven't gone so far as to go out and talk with those people and ask them, how are you using our information? And once we do, we may find we have multiple users, and that page, that audience is maybe as broad as they think it is. And then we need to work with that content and come up with a balance that reaches all those audiences.
And one other thing too that we found, sometimes you find the best information from people who have absolutely no frame of reference whatsoever with your site, or the information you're providing. Because truly, if they can consume it, understand it, and leave with a pretty good understanding, didn't know before if they fit your profile or not, but you know straight away whether it was useful or not.
So how did you access the real people? And we have a hierarchy. We communicate with the analysts who communicate with the line workers who communicate with the public. And I'm wondering, how did you find the real people, and did you compensate them in any way?
It can be challenging, and we haven't been able to compensate them. Where we've contracted with designers, and we have done that, and had them come in and work with us, we've been able to offer some incentives. But what we've typically done, a lot of our customers, and this isn't a perfect study, but a lot of our customers frequent employment centers around the state. And we're able to go to those employment centers, and we sit there in the employment centers and wait for our next test subject. And some will tell us, no, don't have time, but we'll ask them, why are you here? I'm here to file my claim for unemployment. Would you mind taking some time or spending some time with us? And we'll test with those individuals. Sometimes we'll go through our database of employers and we'll send out an invitation to employers to say, we're testing our website, we're testing a particular application on our website. Would you mind coming in and meeting with us? And we'll draw from them.
Or we've even gone out, we work with the business owner to identify those customers, those business people, and actually gone out to their offices, sat down with them, and done the testing right on site with them.
And we like to do that as well, because then we get a better sense for what kind of technology they're using when they access our site as well.
Yeah, I think that's key. Is and this is always a struggle. How do I say this the right way? Okay, I'm just going to say it. We don't own these applications. I don't own Employee Gateway. I don't own the DTS website. I don't own any of it, really. I mean, I try to do the best job possible on it. I mean, I can't even code. We all know that. We've seen me try. But at this point, it has to be a suggestion to the business, saying, "Hey, we went to this Brown bag, and they say maybe we could go out and meet with one of your customers." And that might be a point where they say, "It's a great idea. I don't know who they are." So, and plus they eventually have to pay those costs and everything too. So we have to be somewhat adept at either working with our getting really close. And with DWS, I mean, these guys are in lockstep with their business. I don't, especially us, apparently, we don't always have that direct relationship to their to the different customers. Another thing you said that I think might, is sometimes we have people that have gone in on a website, different divisions, different things like that, they may have different customers. How do you satisfy that need? Those are very tricky design problems. It's good to bring a designer in to maybe help us with that, but at some point he's going to want, it seems like every time that I'll go out with these guys, we'll meet with somebody, I'll do my sales spiel, little circus show that I do to sell a website or something. If you're one of my customers, I promise it's not a circus show. But these guys generally will make an appointment a week after to go out and talk through some of the issues after they've done a little study. I think that's the constant thing from any of these websites that we've had to do is, if you can, try to save a little budget for after something does go live, to go back and make some design corrections, because there are so many little things that may need to change. And services, I mean, they may not know the services that they actually want to provide until the thing's out there live. But I do understand your concern, but sadly, I feel that too, is we're so far away from the customer in BTS at times, from the end user of the product. It can feel like we're only interfacing with the person in front of us, where they've got to work that way too. So it's good to see if you can work through them to the customer, rather than, I know a lot of people say you got to work your way up the management chain to get something done. In this way, in a design way, we're trying to work our way to the customer to get something done. So I do understand some of that concern, but I think there's ways to work through it. I think, and Bob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you taught Interactive this quite a bit of bringing a few people in on a website and getting, because I mean, they've got a much, I mean, they really can get person off the street for Utah. I mean, we can't always do that with all of our projects, but. Yeah.
But I think there's something we also tend to look at, and I don't want to be down on anybody's website, but, you know, government websites really are not all that cool. Some of what we do is boring as heck. And so one of the things we always try to do is say, why does the user come there? What's the primary user reason or user story that's driving them? That, to some extent, begins to dictate the experience. But it starts with the user.
We finally got our first website recently where we could put flames on the website. We were very thrilled about that.
How good is that?
It was yeah, the hot shots, you know, down in the DNR were using some of our services, and they demanded flames. So that was very exciting for us. But generally, you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't want to say the thing to take out of here is simplified boredom, but we want people to get to what they're there for. I mean, a lot of people think, you know, that's why I want to get away from the pretty pictures of design and get more to the usability. Can you get your job done? I guarantee you, all these guys up here, that's job one. They could care less about a shadow, a little pop-down menu, and a this or that. That may guide them there, but the goal is, can you get this job done quickly? Or can you get this job done securely? Or can you get this job done, you know, whatever's the biggest thing at the moment is what they're going to post. And then I'll just ask for an answer.
Okay, it looks like there's not any more questions. Thank you for coming, and next month we will meet here again. And you can watch the announcement. We'll have a good session, I think, on Java tools or something of that nature. Is that what it is, Bob? Yeah.
Okay.
So watch for that. And also, if you haven't signed up for the Digital Government Summit and want to, be sure to do that. It's in 2 days.
I'd like to leave everybody with a little song.